Hello students, now in this module we are going to discuss about lipids. The first thing, what is lipids? Lipids are nothing but fats. So now let's try to understand lipids. They are device form of biomolecules having limited solubility in water and can be isolated from organisms by extractions with non-polar solvents, generally organic solvents. Now, these lipids are classified into two different categories, namely complex lipids and simple lipids. Let's try and understand what exactly is complex lipids. Then, these are esters of long-chain fatty acids which cannot be hydrolyzed and are generally referred as triacylglycerols. Simple lipids, on the other hand, they don't have ester linkages and they cannot be hydrolyzed. Now, what are complex lipids? They include animals and plant fats, whereas simple lipids, these are lipids which include sterols, terpenes and prostaglandins. Let's now discuss first about how a triacyl is formed or a triacylglycerol is formed. So for this, we take a glycerol molecule or a molecule in which there are 3 OH groups. To this, we are adding 3 carboxylic acid, but mind that here we have R1 group, R2 group and R3 group. So now what would happen? OH and H from both these compounds combine to give water molecule. And now what would happen is all the remaining groups, they combine together to give me a corresponding ester which is formed, and this ester is nothing but called as triacylglycerol, or what you say as complex fats. So now what we can say is from glycerol and carboxylic acids we got a molecule of TAG, that is triacylglycerol. Let's move further, and now we need to remember that R1, R2 and R3 which we took might be same or they might be different, or they might be saturated or unsaturated. Let's move further now, discussing about complex lipid in much details. Herein we can see complex lipids or triacylglycerols are again classified into 2 categories, namely fats and oils. Now what are the properties of fats and oils? The first thing, fats, they consist of compounds or proportions of saturated fatty acid which is more in number, whereas oils consist of more proportions of unsaturated fatty acids. Again, the second point, fats, they are generally solids at room temperature, whereas oils, they are generally liquid at room temperature. And a very important point to remember over here, that all complex lipids, they are generally existing in form with a prosthetic group. That means a group which is not a lipid. So what I mean to say is, I have a complex lipid which would comprise of lipid and a prosthetic group. Let's see some examples for this. So, in our first example, let's take a molecule of glycolipids where the lipid is attached to a carbohydrate. Next, we have phospholipids, lipids plus phosphate group. One example I can give for you this is lecithin. The next, third one is proteolipids, that is lipids plus proteins. And lastly, you have nucleolipids, that is lipids plus nucleic acids. Now, some shorthand points for complex lipids need to be remembered. Let's see those points. The first point says that the simple animal glycolipids are cerebrosides, whereas most common cerebroside which are found are galactocerebroside. Means student, this is a glycolipid, and the most common glycolipids formed in plants consist of galactose sugar. Lastly, waxes secreted by plants and animals are mainly esters of long chain carboxylic acids with long chains of alcohols. Let's move further, and now let's start with the discussion of the next category, that is simple lipids. Herein we have some properties which you need to remember. The first property is simple lipids are those lipids which does not consist of ester linkage and hence cannot be hydrolyzed. The next property is all simple lipids, that is steroids, are derived from a molecule of cyclopentanoper hydrophenanthrene, which has 4 nucleus of rings. Next is simple lipids, that is bile acids, sex hormones and vitamin D are also examples of steroids. Next point, the major plant sterol, that is phytosterol, is cytosterol. Next, the major fungal sterols, also called as mycosterols, consist of ergosterol. And lastly, what we can say is testosterone and androsterone, that are androgens, while testosterone and estradiol, which are estrogens, are sex hormones, which are also a form of simple lipids. So this was all about this module. Meet you in the next module with the uses of lipids. Till then, thank you, students.